Now that we have our form, we have our database, we have our onSubmit event to put the forms that are submitted into the database so we can access it. The next step is to actually build the web application for reviewing and publishing tours. So this is UX I've built in advance that contains a lot of the things that we want to do. Building this is going to take a lot longer than what we can fit into the course. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch on how we did some of these things, like how we created the lists and built the detailed views and so on and so forth, as well as go into a little more in-depth discussion on the map parts of this app. But beyond that, we're not going to go through every single little change. And we're also not going to really worry too much about how the app is styled and the look and feel and that kind of stuff like that. We're going to just focus on the core controls needed to get where we need to be for that next step of refinement before we finally push this out the door. This is the basic gist. So we want a list of tours. We ideally would like a way to search them in case we need to find something. We need to know a little bit of information about it, like has it been published, has it been archived, and the names, what the submitted status is, when it was created. And then for each one of those, we want to be able to review the tour name, take a check at the stops, make sure the Latin lawn is available for everything, and if it's not, provide a way to encode that. And then for individual stops, we want to review two things, any photos that are associated with it, as well as any links. These could be like links to a website for a restaurant or a YouTube video that explains more information about the stop itself, just to have an opportunity to look at these things, review them, and make sure that they are in a state that we want for our consumption, and if it's not, something we take out. And here's where we're going to add in the compare locations. If this had an address, this would open up a map to plot both of the addresses. Similarly, if it had an address and it didn't have a lat lawn, we want a button here to encode that location, because when you are plotting locations on a Google map, using the latitude and longitude coordinates costs significantly less in terms of your API rates. So if you plot a map location with a lat long, it is less expensive than using an address, because an address has to be geoencoded before it can be plotted. So you have to get the latitude and longitude. And rather than do that every single time that you plot the marker for the address, it's better to just geoencode it, because it's going to A, speed it up, and B, reduce the cost of that API call with Google Maps. So let's start building this interface. Let's start with the basics. We'll start with our lists and get the detail views set up in that tab layout, our panel navigator, our panel cards, and get that all laid out. So I have a new UX component here, and what we're going to start with is we're just going to start by bringing in our list controls for our tables, our tours, our stops, the links, the points of interest, and hook up all of the parent-child relationships so that is all configured and ready to go for when we want to do saving and editing. So to start, we're going to add a list control. And this one's going to be our parent list. And we're going to use, in here, we're going to use this connection string localhost, which is a local copy of our tour builder databases. And the first one we need to create is one for tours. On the field list, we are just going to simply select everything except all these user fields, because we don't use them, and the metadata due date. These other ones, not necessarily needed, but we're going to include them anyway. And also we're going to include this ID field, the published and the archived. ID is the one that we need for linking our fields tables together. And then published and archived are the extra fields we added so that we can do things like publish the routes or archive them, which is a soft delete. We'll click OK. I do want a detail view, and I'm going to let it generate everything in a container and we're going to use that container later to make the layout. And the other thing that I would like is a search part, and we're just going to have one keyword search. And the things that we want to search are the stuff that people entered, so their name and overview, the creator, and possibly the type. Click OK. And we'll also let that go in a container. The nice thing about using container is that you can convert it to other things. Like you can convert a container to a panel header or panel footer, or a CSS grid layout, or really all sorts of layout types that are very advantageous to use. So like maybe you want to pop up your details in a window. That's a container. That's a window container. So wrapping these in containers now will save us the step later where we need to add that stuff. It'll already be available to us. And then this final thing, disconnected operation. We're not going to make this a disconnected offline capable app because this is going to be on the internet, on the web, in a browser. You need to have a connection to reach it, so you need to have a connection to use it. So we'll click OK. And this is our first list. We're going to set up the next one, which is our tour stops. We're going to make a new list. Here we go. We're going to go through the quick setup genie again. Same connection string as before. This one will be stops. On the fields here, we're going to select all. You'll notice I don't have any metadata information in here, and that's because I've removed it from my local database, which is fine. On this one, we want these in a very specific order. We want them to be listed in the stop order, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4 field. Now, when the form is imported into your database, the stops should be in the order that they were added in the form. So they might already be in the order they need to be to go on the tour, but if they're not, if you want to reorganize things, this is a way that you can add that. So we'll do that one. We'll let it just do ascending, which is the default. And then it has a parent list. So the parent list is list 1, which we should probably rename to tours. And in this list, it's actually the form instance ID, and we could just use the form instance ID to say this is the ID of the field, but of the form record. But we'll go with ID here, and then in the linking field, it's link value. So ID, surrogate primary key, parent link field, and link value. I also believe parent table are all added for you. And that link value is related to the parent linking field. What is that value in the parent linking field? So we can hook that up now. Click OK. And I'm realizing I forgot to generate the detail view, but we can do that really easily from the list builder itself. If you open the list builder for a list and you go to list properties, has detail view, go to detail view, and then just use the detail view quick setup genie, you can quickly add in all the controls that you need. So I'm going to do that right now, and I will we'll hop forward in time basically to where we have all of our lists added. So I'm going to repeat what we just did for the stops photos and stop links to connect to our stop locations for this list. All right, we now have a list for all of our data. We have list 5, which is our links, list 4, which is our photos, list 3, which is the stops themselves, and then list 1, which is our tours. Real quick note, when setting up list 4 and list 5, which are our photos and our stop links, when setting up the parent-child data relationship, and this is going to apply to any kind of nested data groups you have. So top level data group, which is at the same level as just regular fields in your form. The primary key there is basically going to be the form instance ID. However, if you have nested data groups like we have, like a stop can have multiple photos, that's a nested data group, those photos, the surrogate primary key comes into play. And surrogate primary key is generated on the for the data group for each record. And so when setting this up, the parent list, our stops, the primary key there is actually the surrogate PK field. And then the child data group, or photos, stores that linking value in the link value field. So setting up all of your nested data groups, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have the surrogate primary key, and you have the link value. You can rename those in your databases if you want to. Just make sure that your onSubmit events are putting that information in the field you expect it to be. So the next thing we need to do is we need to clean this up a bit. We've got list 1, we've got list 3, we've got list 4 and 5. Not very informative in the interface from a design standpoint. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at if it's just called list 1. So we would like to rename those. And the other thing that we'd like to do here is take out all the fields we don't need. So there's a whole bunch of metadata fields here. Not interested in letting users edit this information. This should just strictly be read-only for whatever needs that might exist for needing to know metadata about the form itself when it was submitted to the database in terms of what gets sent out to the end user on the mobile side. They're never going to see any of that. People modifying these tours are only going to be interested in these published, archived, and some of these fields where people can enter in information like their name or words that might need to be corrected for spelling and clarity. Those are the things that people are going to be interested in working with. All this other information isn't necessary to see. And then the last thing that I would like to do here is get all of these lists and detail view information separated out into panels so it makes sense in some sort of tabbed UI layout for now, so that we can easily look at each of one of the screens without having to add in a whole bunch of set panel active, return to previous panel kind of logic to navigate through it. Just a very basic interface that shows everything that we have so we can figure out the layout. So we're going to start first by renaming our lists. And this might require updating some of these buttons down here, but that's okay. So I'm going to close this here. So we're going to rename this one Tour. Tours, plural. And we'll wait for that to finish. And just as a real quick, sanity check, let's check to make sure these buttons were updated. If they were not, we will just delete them all and re-add them later. It was. So that's great. We don't have to worry really anywhere that list 1 was referenced now in here to go and fix it. So let's continue down the line and update list 3, list 4, and list 5. So we've finished updating the list names. So they all, instead of being list 1, list 3, list 4, and list 5, they say tours, stops, photos, and links. In doing this, in addition to changing that name, I also noted that we do have to tweak one thing, and it only pertains to the children lists. The parent list ID was not updated when we renamed the list. So if you have lists that you're renaming and they have a parent-child relationship like this, make sure you come in here and update the parent list ID field in the list to make sure it's mapping to the new one. And then the other thing as a quick note is I believe we had originally set this up to be ID, and it's actually form instance ID needs to be the parent linking field for our stops. ID is just a number. Form instance ID is the actual form instance ID that was used in the stops table to link those together. So now that we've done this, the next thing that we want to do is configure soft deletes. And I've mentioned this a few times. We have the, let's see if it's here, archived for the tours, and then all of the children lists have a field called deleted, and that's the intent of that is to be a soft delete option, which is available in the list. It's part of the table properties on all of these things. So we'll just work with stops here since we have it open. But if you go into table properties on the detail view, there's a setting in here for delete type, and by default it's going to be hard. You can change this to soft, and what it's going to do is ask you what field. So we want to be able to soft delete stops. We don't want them to go away completely, but we would like to remove them. So we're going to use this deleted field here to indicate that something has been soft deleted. We'll click OK. The other thing that we're also going to update while we're here is the synchronization policy. By default, the list will not download new records nor upload changes unless you sync the list with the synchronization button, which we have here. We're going to change all of these policies on all of our lists to automatically save edits to the server when they're saved, and also at the same time synchronize down any new list information that might be available when that happens. You may not want to do that. You may want to leave this to only perform a sync, a pull of any new data with a button, which we won't be adding in this this app, but it is something to consider adding in the future. So we're going to do that for everything. We're going to set up the soft delete, and we're going to adjust the synchronization policy so that every time something is saved, it's saved immediately. Click OK. And at the same time while we're doing that, we're going to remove these two buttons, the new record and the synchronize. We're going to get rid of those for everything. So I'm going to go through and remove those buttons and update all of our lists so that they have soft delete configured, as well as that synchronization policy to always save back to the database when a change is made. And then we'll move on to changing the layout out next. Now before we do a preview of this to make sure everything's still linked together, I would like to do one more thing, and that is to put everything into some panels and convert some of these containers into panel headers, window containers, or CSS grid, which is a type of layout container, before we proceed further. So let's begin by wrapping everything in a panel navigator. So I will select everything, and we'll go up the side here. There we go. We'll go to Panels, Panel Navigator. We'll wrap everything in a Panel Navigator, and we're going to set this Panel Navigator up to be a tab buttons panel, so it has tabs across the top. Let's see here. So that's selected. Navigation type, tab band, not tab buttons. And the tab band location is going to be at the top. Now, you'll notice here we have a layout error, and that's because we've created a panel navigator with a bunch of stuff in it, and none of that is a panel. So we have to add in the panels next, and I'm going to add them around the content of everything that I want to exist on each panel. So that first panel card, this is going to be our tours. And it's going to contain our tours, and I did not want to include these guys here. I wanted them outside. I'll move that down real quick here. It's going to have our tours list and the search part. And the search part I want to be in a header for the panel, so we're going to convert the container subtype from none to panel header. And then the last thing we can do here, well, we won't do it right now, but eventually we will want to also maybe have this fill the whole container. Next, we were going to put the detail view as well as the stops on their own panel. And then finally, at the bottom here, we are going to wrap the stop detail, the photos, and the links all in their own panel card. So we'll have three panels. We'll have one that's the list of the tours, one that's the tour details with the list of the stops, and then a stop details view. In addition to this, we're also going to convert these containers. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. We're going to start with the links and the photo containers. We actually want these to be windows that open for editing the photo or the link. So we're going to change the container type from none to window for both of these. Let's do that real quick. Here's a window. And we'll change this one as well. Okay, so now window containers, these fields won't be shown unless explicitly displayed using the open a window action JavaScript to display one of these container windows, which is what we want. We're also going to take the detail view for the stops and the tour and convert the containers from none to a CSS grid, which will allow us to do a very nice layout of the controls. The CSS grid is something that we added in recent history within the last year. It's a very nice container, and I recommend becoming familiar with it if you don't know what it is. So this is what we've got now, and I checked my notes real quick. We actually aren't ready to make this a panel header just yet, so let's make this a none container for now. And we'll take a preview of what we got here just to verify everything's working. So here's where we're at. We have our 3 tabs. They just say panel card 1, 2, and 3. But on this first one, here's our tours. Go to panel card 2. We see a whole bunch of stuff. Let's go back here and let's pick, let's find that Boston tour. Okay, so we'll select that one. If we go to panel card 2, we see it's loaded up. We have some information here. If we pick one of these and we go to panel card 3, we see here's the information, the photos, there are none. Here is the website information though. So that is looking closer to what we want. Now, the next big piece really is, doing the layout. Going through and removing those fields we don't need, so we don't want those metadata fields in our layout. And then we really don't need the archived information in there either, since that's going to be associated with our delete button. So we could take that out, as well as the delete fields down in the detail views here. So let's start by removing all of our metadata from the tour detail view. So we'll take that out. Yes, we want to delete those controls. We also want to take out archived, because that's going to be associated with the delete record button. And we don't necessarily need the form instance ID or the ID either, because that's extra information that the user isn't going to edit and doesn't really give them any kind of like information they need to know. We'll also come down here and we'll look at the panel card 3. All of this information can go, including deleted. We will take out stop order as well. We'll provide a different way for reordering the stops. And that same information we can take out of our photos and our links as well. So just a quick check to make sure that everything is working. Now that we've removed that, let's go in and let's just modify one of the tours that seems to not have any useful information in it whatsoever. One of these first ones that doesn't have a title or links or anything really. So let's work on this one. Let's go to panel card 2 and see what's in here. It's got no info in here at all. This will just do a test tour, editing test. We'll save it. So we see that saved. We didn't get any errors. We could click on stop 1 here and go to panel card 3. We could do something like add in some info. This is a test. And save that real quick. This is just to validate that this information is being saved. We can see here, this has all been updated. If we go back in and do another full preview, we'll pull the data down from the database again. We could also go use the Database Explorer to check to make sure that information was saved. And we can see it here. If we select this, we go to panel card 2, we see that our edits are here. This is a test is loading. Perfect. Let's check the database itself. We'll go to the Database Explorer. We'll look at localhost. And we just need to check the tours. So we will right click on this and we will show the data in the table. And there's our editing test. So it's saving, it's doing everything that we expect it to do. So that's great. Let's close that. So next is some layout tweaking. Let's rename our panel cards so that the tabs have like a more logical name, which is done here in the display name field. So we'll update that for the 3 tabs that we have. And let's also get in there and start fixing the layout for each detail view for the tours and the stops so that those fields make a little bit more sense. So for the display name here, we're going to call this tours. Panel card 2, we will call this stops. Not really stops. We'll call it stop details. Oh no, we do want to call it stops. This is the list of stops for the selected tour. The 3rd panel card, we want stop details for the display name. So we did that. So let's also now work on this CSS grid container. Now, you can get into the editing interface by double-clicking it. But this is like a grid layout, so everything that's listed over here can be placed in this grid, including our save, delete, and reset buttons, which I don't want to do that. I want to move those out into the section right after so that they're always at the bottom. But let's add in our tour name here. Let's say this one spans the full column. Let's see here, set to first width column span. Okay. And then down below that we'll do the creator for 2. And next to that we'll put the type. And then finally at the bottom we'll do an overview. Span the full thing, and let's add one more row. Let's put down here, let's just put published here for now. Call that good. These other things here, these 3 guys I'm going to move down, or 4 guys, the global errors and then the save buttons, I'm just going to put down here. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to take the stops and have it fill the whole width. And we'll take out the label. No label. Turn off the label for this guy. No label for that one. So tour name, overview, creator, tour type, and whether or not it's been published. Now these all need to be, these 3 are text fields. Tour type could actually be a drop-down. On second thought, let's not do that. Let's make tour type a radio button. And the choices in here are very simple, and I believe I have saved these off. Tour types, walking, biking, transit. Okay. So those are the three types that a tour can be. We want to render it as a button list. So it looks like some nice buttons across the screen there. And that's what all we need to do there. Published also, we can make that a checkbox. And for now, let's make sure this is, well, no, we don't have to do anything about that. We can just leave it as is. We do want to go in though and clean up the names here. So the checkbox text could be publish tour, question mark. That appears after the checkbox. We'll come down here and we'll make sure the label is turned off because we don't need the label for that one. For these other four, we will quickly fix up the labels here. To be tour name. And let's have it float above. And I want that to happen for everything, so we'll just copy that to all of those other two there. And then we'll rename tour overview, or the label anyway. And tour creator. Quickly check to make sure there's no maximum length restrictions on here. And then we'll take a quick look at what we've done. So here's our first screen. Not much changed here on tours other than we changed the panel name, but you'll see it says tours, stops, and stop details. So if we have this one selected and we go to stops now, here's our new layout. So this says test tour. This is the tour name. Tour creator doesn't have any text in it, so it's just showing the label there, but it does go up above. And this is the tour overview, so if we take that out and click out of it, there's our tour overview. So we need to change the height here a little bit so that those labels are visible. But here is our tour type. It appears that one was never selected. And if we go back here and we check, we'll see that it actually is indeed blank. See, if we scroll down here, these ones say walking. So this one didn't have a tour type yet. So we could do something like check walking and save this. And here's our save, delete, and reset. Publish tour is over here on the side. Not entirely sure why that happened, so we'll look into that. Let's go back in here and edit our container layout. So published is down here, and it appears to want to not be down there. So I suspect it might have something to do with it being a logical checkbox. So for now, let's just take it out of this and we'll move it below since we want it here anyway. And so if we go back in here, that should take it out of the layout. We see it's gone, so we don't need 4 rows anymore. We could reduce that to 3. We'll click OK. On the float label above, there's some settings in the UX itself that you can customize. So the floating label settings. Let's go take a look at those real quick. Excuse me. So we have floated label location and floated label font size. Let's, instead of above control, let's say inside control, so it's always contained within the control itself. We'll let this save and we'll go back and check the live preview real quick just to verify that keeps the label on screen at all times. So we'll pick this guy again, we'll go over to stops, and now you can see there's the tour name tour creator is grayed out as a watermark because there wasn't one set, and there's the tour overview. Now we may want to do other things like maybe make the tour overview a text area so that there's more vertical space to read. But we're not going to worry about that for this demo for now. This is basically where I want it to be. The next piece really is these stops, the stop details, and getting this layout also fixed up. So I've taken a little bit of time here to clean up this layout a bit more before proceeding further. As you will notice, it has actually changed quite a bit. I have, instead of having just the panel card, which we'd set it before for stops, I've actually added a panel layout here so we could split the panel card that contains the tour information from the stops, so we can let the stops fill as much area as possible using the fill container. Lists need to be within a container or a panel card in order to enable fill container because they're going to cover everything that's in that container. They can be the only thing in it. So the only way to get that is by splitting this from one panel card into two panel cards and then placing that within a panel layout. Panel layouts have multiple uses for laying panels out, either in a top to bottom or left to right, right to left, bottom to top flow directions. So we're going to use one here to put the stops on the bottom below all the details about the selected tour. And then similarly on that second tab of our stop details, instead of just having panel card 3 with everything in it, we've broken out into a little bit more complex layout here. So this is now a left to right panel layout. So the panels within it will be placed left to right in order, starting with panel card 3, which contains the details of the stop. And then another panel layout that's configured top to bottom that contains the photos and the links for a particular stop. So if we take a quick look at that now, just to get an idea of what is there, and also talk about a few other things that have been changed. So here's the new layout. You'll notice the lists still contain a ton of information, but that the label, the one that said list 1, is now gone. This is tours is now filling as much space as possible, and that search that we had before has actually been converted into a panel header, putting it up above and allowing this to consume as much space as it can. If we pick a stop here now, let's pick this one, the Boston one. If we go to stops, you'll notice this layout is much cleaner. This is now taking the full width. We have our tour information. Here's our save buttons. And then down here we have all the stops associated, and that's anchored nicely. If we pick one of these and then go to stop details, we have the details for that particular stop here on the side. And then any associated links or photos will be listed here. Now there's still a bit more work that needs to be done on cleanup in the lists themselves, and we'll go through that next. But a few things I wanted to point out here. The description types I have coded here as their checkbox control rendered as a button list, like we did with the stop tour type. And the other thing that we did is we, on here on stop details, you'll see there's this audio, no audio thing. This is an audio control. So if there is an audio recording associated with a particular stop, this one doesn't have one. It was only text. But if there's an audio recording here, this will let the person reviewing the stop to let them play that audio. Now, big heads up, you can't playback audio here in the live preview, so this is something you'd have to do on a live test or publish to local hosts to actually verify that your audio is coming through okay. But by and large, this is what we're looking for here. I also did some work on converting the link types, like link of it could be like a website or a YouTube video. That will also render as this checkbox button list when we get to that portion of this app. So those are the big changes there just on layout. Pretty simple, basic. You will have access to this component. You can download it and take a look at everything that gets done here on your own time. So we're going to continue proceeding forward with some of the more complex things. I am going to take a minute to strip down the amount of data in these lists so they're easier to read. They will look similar to how these tour lists in our mockup that we looked at the very beginning appear. And we'll just open this up real quick so you can get an idea about the direction we're headed on those lists. So here on the tour, we're going to reduce this information down to just status created, whether or not it's been published. We're going to take archived out because if something is archived, it shouldn't appear at all because it's been deleted. On the tour details, we'll need to have on tour details, we're just going to look at the stop numbers, the lat long address, that kind of stuff. The particulars of the details of individual records here, we will want people to edit here. So those, we will not have this, these icons here for this particular case. And then finally, if we take a look at one that has some audio here, on stop details, we're going to tweak photos to display the actual photo. And links is going to be reduced as well. We're going to take out these ID surrogate key, etc. It's just going to be the link URL and its type. So let's do that. So we're back. I've cleaned it up now. Notice that we just have these columns, the metadata status and created, and the name of the tour, and whether or not it has been published. If we take a look over here at stops, this is now a lot cleaner. We see our stop order at the front, which we're going to talk about next, as well as some information about the stop, what type of description it has. Useful for trying to find an example where you're demonstrating both an audio and a text. And if we take a look at stop details, you'll see that our images now display here, and that we only have the link info and the link URL is 2 columns here. And just a little bit more about that. If we pick a tour like this one, which has multiple photos for a stop, they all align very nicely. This white area down below is actually where the stop description photo would appear if one was provided, one was not provided, so these are all blank. So let's take a look at how this was done. On the photos, they've been built as a freeform layout. So if we open up photos here, and this is an example of where Alpha Anywhere can really help you move forward building stuff. So it looks complex, but it's actually quite simple. So the way this was set up was the photos was converted from a layout type of column to freeform. And then I told it was a snaking layout and gave each entry in that layout a width of 200 px. So each record has a width of 200 px. It's going to have some max height determined by the size of the photos. But we have 200 pixels here. And then the list layout itself is just one of our canned layouts with a little bit of tweaking. If you go into predefined templates here, and we click on more templates, there's a bunch of little layouts in here that are quite lovely to work with. And I believe the one that I grabbed was one of these two, either this one or this one. And then I just cut everything out that I didn't need. So just reduced it down to its basic image, which is the data photo contains the URL to the image. And then for the alt tag, which is important in some cases, I added the description there. So that can be inserted here. Data means insert the text. If you use these placeholders, it'll actually insert like the control. So if you've told photo in fields that it's an image, if you insert the placeholder photo, it will insert image HTML markup. If you use data photo, it just inserts the value of that field. And then here, just photo description. And the CSS is here. Just quickly kind of mouse over it a little bit so you can see it here. It's not terribly complex, and this will be available to you. All this really does is define those rounded corners and the drop shadow on that image box that contains the content. So that's all we did there. I wanted to work on next just stops. Wanted to add in the ability to, one, set the stop order if it doesn't exist. The forms coming from transform will not have a stop order. So that will be null or 0 depending on how the system interprets it. And in addition to that, they won't be sorted necessarily in the order you want them to be sorted in if you try to sort by sort order. So we want to make sure that if the data has stops, we sort by the stop number on that list, and if it doesn't, we should sort by the ID, which is a field that's auto-incremented every time a new value is entered. So let's look at stops here. So if we take a look at the SQL statement for stops, you'll notice that it has currently order by stop order. And I know for a fact not all of the stops in this system will have a stop order. It might be null. So we need to first tweak our order to include the ID, and we'll just move it there real quick. So if we execute this query and preview it, and scroll all the way down to the end here. Where is it at? Here's our stop order, and you'll see it says 11111 for a whole bunch. But here we have ID. This is an auto increment field. It gets incremented every time a new stop is added, and it's going to preserve the order that your records were submitted in from transform if we use the ID to order by. And we'll just do A to Z here and click OK. So that handles the ordering, but the reordering piece is what we actually need to add next. So we're going to do that with the drag to reorder property in the list. So in list properties, there's a setting down here called has drag row drag reorder behavior, and if you turn this on, you get access to this drag reorder settings, and in here you can configure how the reorder happens. And there are two options: down hold, meaning you click and hold the record and then you can move it, or a handle. We're going to choose the handle option, and we'll take the sample code here, we'll copy it to the clipboard. This sample code has several things in it. It has HTML markup you can add that includes the drag handle. It has some CSS, suggested CSS to use for rendering the drag handle, and then some JavaScript for dynamically enabling and disabling the ability to click and drag, reorder the rows. We are not going to do this part. In fact, we're actually going to simplify this CSS, but we will copy this to clipboard and paste it over here on Notepad so we can pull from it later. So now that we have that pasted, let's close out of here. We'll leave it on handle, we'll click OK, and next we're going to go into this move end JavaScript here, and we're going to define a function to call when the reorder happens, and we're going to call it order stops. We're just going to define it as a JavaScript function because we actually want this in two, we want to be able to do this two ways. We want to renumber the stops if they're click and drag, if someone moves them manually, and we also want a way to just number them all if they haven't been numbered yet. So we're going to make this function called order stops, and I'm going to copy that name over here to my Notepad real quick. So that's available to me as well, so I can get to this real quickly later when we need it. And that's all we're going to do here. We're going to click OK. And then next, before we do anything else, we're going to add in the CSS and the drag handle for our list. So start with the drag handle. So we'll go to the list layout, and we're going to pick our stop order here, and we're going to edit the template. And this is where we're going to add our drag handle. So this is, if you've never used this before, the every field in the column or list has a template, and it usually is just the field name in that template, but you can come in here and edit it as if this was a free-form layout for each column. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab that HTML that was given us, and I'm going to put a space here and add stop order after this. So what this is this is an image from the alpha CSS icons. It's the bars one, it's 3 bars. And it's going to, when this column is rendered, it's going to render this image followed by stop order. But we also need to do something here with the drag reorder handle. So we're going to click OK and save that. And then we're going to go to CSS. So we'll have to enable the CSS tab here and add in the CSS that was provided in that example for the drag reorder handle. And we're going to tweak it in the following ways. We're going to take width and we're going to put it there so it's always displayed. We're going to take out the transition because there's going to be no transition to show hide. That's what the transition is a animation effect. And we're going to keep everything else, I believe. Let me double check real quick. Okay, it looks like we also need, let me just, do I don't have, there we go. Let me just quickly update this. So, oops. So we need drag reorder handle. We also need the div. There we go. So that is basically what we had before, but we also need this on the div. The div is, if we go back to the list layout here, we look at stop order again. That div reference is this thing. And all that does is give it a size. So we'll click OK. And now, if we go in and we look, if we were to look at this now, there would be a little handle icon. But before we do that, let's also create that JavaScript function that we just added a call to in the drag reorder. And so we're going to do that here in JavaScript functions. So here I've got the function already on the clipboard. We're going to paste it in. And so this is order stops. And order stops very simply gets a pointer to the list stops. And then, one, it verifies that this object exists. This is important to do, always. Always check to make sure that when you call get control that the object exists before you start doing anything with it. Because if it doesn't exist, you're going to get JavaScript errors and your app is going to stop working and you're not going to know why. So first, check that it exists. This is a very simple check. And then what this does in here is it gets the total number of rows in the stops list and goes through and sets the stop order to the current row index plus 1. So the list data is going to be, has a row index starting at 0 index data. So if you add 1, then you get 1. So the stop in row 0 will be stop 1, and stop 2, and stop 3, and stop 4, so on and so forth. And that's what we need to do here. We also need to add a button that will let you save the changes to the list, because update table row will set the value in the list, but it will not save it back to the database because we're not doing a save in a detail view. We're simply just updating the data in the list. So we need to add something that will let the user who has just run this operation save that information. And we're going to do that by adding a panel footer to the stops panel card. And in there we'll place a couple of buttons. We're not going to put it in control bar. So here's our panel footer, and so let's add some buttons. Add control button. There we go. First one we're going to call order stops. And let's make sure this is set to just our basic button in the web theme here. So this button, this is going to be the one that people can use to quickly set the stop order if it doesn't exist. And if you ever forget what you've named things over here, if you go to JavaScript function declarations at the bottom, it will pull up everything you've defined in the UX. So we want to call this function. So go back to JavaScript attribute, paste that in, save it. So clicking that will reorder our stops for us. I'm going to quickly remove that break there. And then I'm going to come down here to define controls. And I'm going to locate the list detail view buttons. And what we're going to add is this synchronize, push all edits from this list to the server for stops. And this is going to be the thing that lets us save that reordered list. So I'll click OK. And then I'm going to change the text on this button so it doesn't say synchronize, but something else more to the point of what you may have just done and what you need to do, which is save stop orders. Okay. And what we'll also do here is we'll just save any, let's just update this help text here. Well, this is save any modifications to the stops back to the database. When you go to production, that might not be the best message to provide your users, so you may want to consider making it something more obvious. But with that, we've got a way to set the stops and then save the stops. So let's save this, and we'll do a preview. So I've gone in and I've tweaked a few of these tours to demonstrate a tour that already has a stop order, so reordering, and then one that doesn't. So let's take a look here at this Boston Freedom Trail one. If we go to stops here, we'll see the stop order is 0. But this is in the correct order that it should be because it's ordering by the ID, which matches exactly how this was originally set up. So we have our order stops button here. If we click that, we now get our stop order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's keep going here. Oh, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's because we set the width too small here. Just as a quick treat, I suppose. What do you do when that happens and you don't know what width you need to make something? You can come in here to the Chrome debugger and come on over to elements and quickly come down here and click on that. Click on the Chrome debugger again to bring it back to the foreground. And then if we drag this into view, we see that there's a width here. If we take that off, we observe that it didn't help us. It didn't make it any wider. So let's put that back on there and see if a wider width of perhaps maybe 100 is better. And I'm noticing it isn't really growing here. So let's go up a bit to see why. And it's starting to become apparent why. We also have a width of 40 here on the drag handle itself. So let's just make that 100. Oops. If we hit escape, there we go. And there we go. Now we can see the 10, 11, 12. So we're going to make a note to update that in our list, which I'll do. We don't need to worry about that here. But basically, we'll go ahead and close this. So this is our order. We can now save the stop order. Now remember, this is the synchronize button, but it has been enabled because if you look here, these are all marked as edited, so they need to be synced. So if we save this, that's the stop order for this list, and that's all we need to do here. If we go and look at another one, this one here also doesn't have stops set, so we'll do that real quick. But let's say we didn't want to do it in this order. Let's say we wanted to reverse the whole thing. You can just now click and drag porch to the top there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe do living room next, then my desk in the kitchen. So that's the new stop order. We will save it, and now that's the order that this tour will be presented to the end user when they look at the data. So it's The drag to reorder is a nifty little feature. You do have to implement what happens on the reorder yourself. However, as we just saw, it didn't take too much effort to just go through and update our stop order with a little bit of JavaScript. So we've got stop order working. The next order of business is going to be getting um, buttons added to look at these locations, the point of interest and the point of interest address. And we should actually go through and change all these labels. We're not going to worry about that. I'll leave that as an exercise for you to update. But we're going to add buttons to plot these two locations on a map. If there are two of them, if there's only one of them, still want to look at it on a map. And then also if there's an address, a geocode address button. So let's go do that. So for these location and addresses, we would like to provide a way to do a number of things. One, we would like to be able to compare those two values if there are two there, if the user captured a location while also providing an address. We would like to be able to geocode those addresses, and we'd also like to just view the individual locations on a map if that's available. Now, you may have noticed this view has already changed, and there are two new buttons here, one called Compare Locations, one called geocode address, and I have taken the liberty to add these in now without walking through how it was all set up, because it's a lot of things that need to be set up, and that can take a lot of time. So we're just going to look at how these two buttons behave when you click them in live preview, and then we'll walk through how it was built. So here we are in live preview. We're going to pick this test tour 1 because I happen to know it has a special stop on it, this one right here, that when you look at it, or if you don't already know in advance, the address of where this photo was taken and then the location that was captured by transform are not in the same place, and they're actually quite a distance apart. And when you're on a walking tour, that can be quite significant. So it's almost a whole block in terms of distance. So if we look at those, we can use this button, Compare Locations, to open a map here that plops those two locations. And if we zoom in here, way in here, this green one, this is the address. And up here in the middle of what is a parking lot is the latitude and longitude location that was captured. Now, if you're on a walking tour, this kind of jump is significant. Over here in this parking lot, it's not going to be that little free library that we saw. So being able to compare these two and saying, oh, hey, you know what? We probably should use that. It's very useful. So if we close that, this geocode address button will actually encode this address for us and set it in the location. But before we do that, I wanted to point out there's two little buttons here. These are in control buttons. They're available for the text control, and they do something very, very simple. They simply plot this location or this location on the map by itself. So if we click it, we see here's where that's going to appear. There's no detail view here or anything like that. You can set that up if you need it for the marker when clicked. But here we see that's where the lat long will take us, and if we close that and we open up this one, well, that's that house basically. That's where the address is located. So now that you've seen how these those three buttons, we're going to click geocode address, and all that simply does is just update this value. And if something is wrong, if the address provided isn't a proper address, there will be an error message displayed to the user so they can take action. So you notice that's been changed. If we compare the locations now, we saw very briefly there was the yellow marker and then the green marker, and they're in exactly the same location, which is what we want. So we could, at this point, save this record and call it good and move on to the next thing. We're not going to do that. I want to preserve this data for testing. But what we will do is go over to the Design tab next and take a look at how those things are built. So we're going to start with Compare Locations. And it does a lot, but it doesn't also, like, there isn't that much work here. So we've got 3 Google Map methods. We'll look at each one. And then we have a show container window. And the show container window simply displays this window down here that I've added window 3, it contains a map 1, and that window has also been configured to have a title that says map it, and the width and the height has been set to a 600 by 800 pixel size. That's all the configurations that's there. We're not going to go look at that. But we are going to take a look at these map methods. So there's 3. And the things I want to point out here are stuff that you may not be aware that you can do, but actually will make it very easy to work with map markers on maps. So this first action plots the address, the stop address. So it reads the point of interest address, which this should actually not be list control. It should actually just read it from the control on the components. Let's change that real quick. POI address is an address. And then there's some marker settings and also a marker name, stop address. Marker name is important so that if this action gets called again to plot a marker, if a marker with the same name already exists, it will remove that marker and add the new one. If you always use a different marker name every single time, your map will get cluttered with markers. There are ways to remove those markers, but you do need to know what they're called to remove them. If we look in the settings here, I didn't change much. Added a detail where the data is simply address. We could write a JavaScript function that actually put the actual address in there. I'm not going to do that for this demo. But we also set up this marker green image, and if you've not tried to find these before, this is a built-in image. If we go in here and we click select, it's an add-in image, and there's a whole bunch in here that you can choose from that look like the classic Google marker icons. So I made it green for the address, and I also gave it a group name called stops, and that's important. You'll understand why in a minute. So that's the full setup here. The second action here is the same thing, but for location. Reading the control on the component, the POI location. It's a latitude, longitude this time, not an address. I gave it a name of stop lat lon, and if we look in the marker settings, it also has a group name of stops. It has an image, this one's yellow, and the detail on here is simply the words lat lon. Now there's a third one here, and it doesn't make sense until we go look at the in control buttons why this is here. So we're just going to ignore it for now. We'll close this. So that action will add those 2 markers with the different colors on the map, display the map. I also mentioned that the location and address have in control buttons. So let's go look at how the location one is configured. So if you go into text box properties and you say custom in control buttons, it gives you this builder which you can define an in control button in. And I've added one called view. It's an icon type button. I gave it this icon map, which is an SVG icon. There's a whole bunch you can choose from. I've picked this one. And then it has something that happens on the click action. And on the click action, what it does is it runs some action JavaScript called view address. We're looking at addresses. So if we go into action JavaScript here and we click create edit, you'll see there's 2 here, one called view address, one called view location. View address plots the address, view location plots the location. Let's we take a look at this one. Let's edit this one. There are 3 Google Map 3 actions in here. The first one deletes the stop groups. So I'd mentioned when we were looking at the compare locations that we put both of our markers in a group, and we named that group stops. And we did that so that we could call this action remove markers to take them off the map when we plot just the address so that it doesn't feel super cluttered. So that's what this does. That third action that we saw, the Google Map action that we didn't look at in the compare locations, it deletes the marker with the name stop location. And stop location here, this marker name is identical in both the action to view the address as well as locations, so that that marker is simply moved whenever it's called, so we don't have to delete it and then add another one. So that's how this works. The marker settings here named it location. Also, so I could choose to remove a whole group if I wanted to with that other action. But this plots that location, and then finally show container window just displays window 3, which is our map. So that's how that was set up. It's very straightforward. There isn't any custom code in here whatsoever, other than the fact that to run action JavaScript from an in control button, you have to use JavaScript actions, and this code to run it can be, you can get it by using this insert code to run JavaScript action and simply selecting the one you want to run. So that's the in control button. The one for the location is identical with the caveat that it plots the latitude longitude value instead of the address. This other thing here, this geocode address, actually makes an AJAX callback to geocode the address. And the reason for that is while there is a geocode action JavaScript action available for you, it wants the address, city, state, country, all of those fields broken into individual properties. And then it also wants a place to save the latitude and longitude, specifically a control in the UX, which we don't have. We have one control where we want to save it, the location control. And our address is actually contained in just one place. So trying to go through and split that all up to use the AJAX callback or to use the action JavaScript action isn't as easy as simply just making an AJAX callback to run some server-side XBasic to geocode the address. And if we look at this callback, all it does is call this function called geocode adders, which is a typo. I should have spelled it, didn't spell it address, but we're going to run with this. Everything else in here is the system defaults, didn't change a thing, didn't add any additional data to submit. And if we come over here and look at XBasic functions, we can see the actual geocode adders function that does the geocoding, and it's really very straightforward. E.data submitted, which is passed on the E argument to the function, contains the address value in that POA address control. So we can actually just read that straight out of here and immediately call geocode address, which geocodes an address, and all you have to pass into it is an address in the format of comma delimited address of like 123 Main Street, comma Boston, comma MA. That's how the address looks in our address field. So that's all we need to pass in. The function returns a an object, a dot variable, some type P, and it's going to have a bunch of properties on it. And you can learn more about this function in documentation. It's not very complex, but what does get returned to us is this object, and it has something called an error code property, which we need to check to make sure nothing went wrong. If the error code is 0, it successfully geocoded the address, and we will have a lat and a lon value, which is this right here is just a string creating JavaScript to set the value of the POI location field to the latitude, comma, longitude value that was given back to us. If an error happened, we return a simple JavaScript alert, and we JS escape the error text. That's important because if the error text contains any single quotes, which are being used to create the string within this alert, you will get a JavaScript error when it tries to run it. And then we return the JavaScript we generated. So this is pretty straightforward and simple. It is code, but this is all you need to do to get that geocoding into the app. So the final thing to do really here is to just give an interface for editing the link in the photos so that people can double check that one, that the links don't go somewhere malicious, and then the photos, if they contain description spelling errors, can be modified or deleted. We do want to be able to provide the option to remove the photo, the soft delete basically. If it's blurry, not of the quality we would want a tour to have, whoever is reviewing this, just to keep that final tour as clean as possible. So we're going to do that by updating photos and links here to, well, one, we're going to convert this to a photo field so it looks like a photo. The photo won't be editable, but the description will be. And then here, link info and link URL, both will be editable for the end user. So let's take a look at that next. So to add the ability to edit the photos and the links, which you really can't do because the editing interface is contained within these windows, we're just going to add a button into the list layout that says edit. And it's going to look a bit different in each location. So for photos, because it is a freeform layout, we're going to have to add that button into the photo somehow. So what we'll do here is we'll first add a button to the list. There we go. Add a button. We'll just call it edit. We're just going to keep it simple here. Click OK. For this one, for this button type, we're going to make it an icon. And for the image, we're going to go find that pencil icon that's often seen for editing. So let's see if we have an edit. How about this one? Let's use that one. Okay. And for the on-click event, what it's going to do is it's going to open up this container 1.3, which is the window container that contains our photo controls. And we're going to use action JavaScript for that, so we create a new action. We're going to say edit photo. Click OK. Then we're going to edit the action, add a new action, open a container window, or show container window. The container ID for this one is 1_3. And then we're going to insert the code to run that edit photo. That's it. That's all we have to do. We are not going to turn off stop event propagation. If we do, it will not select the list row that this is in. So we're going to leave that alone. And then next we'll come over to our layout here, and we are going to insert this icon here. We'll add a new paragraph tag, and then we will insert, without holding down the letter A, we will insert our button, which is this guy right here. Edit. That's it. We're done. Links, we're going to do it a little bit differently. This is a column layout, so we're going to have the edit button as an actual item in the row, and the process is the same. We'll go to fields, we'll add a button, we'll make it an icon button, and then we'll insert it into the layout. So we'll do a button, we'll call this one edit as well. Change this to an image, go and pick that edit icon from our SVG icons. Search for edit again. There we go. Click OK, and then on click, we are again going to create an action JavaScript. Edit photo already does what we need it to do. It just doesn't open the container we need to open. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this action. Oh. Duplicate action. Oh, it looks like we haven't saved the component yet, so it's not going to let us duplicate. That's fine. We'll do edit link. Then we'll edit the action. We'll add the same container. Open a container. Sorry, not open. show container window. And that one is 1.4, this one right here. Save it, click OK, insert the code to open edit link. Click OK, and we're done there. And then finally on the list layout, we are going to add edit. We're going to put it at the front. And we're also going to remove the heading. This is shown in the title bar for the list. We don't need that there. We will save this real quick. And then we'll take a look at the app. So here we are in Tour Builder. And let's take a look at a few things. First, let's look at Test Tour 1. This is one that has that interesting information in it. So we have these two stops. On this one, if we come and look at stop details now, we see we have edit buttons for our images. We have to scroll down a little bit to see that, which we could change this layout to be a tabbed layout if we wanted to. We'll leave it as like this for now. So if we wanted to edit one of these, we can just come in here and say Baked Goods Display and save it. And that's saved. That's it. We're done editing that. It's updated. No synchronization needed to do that. So there's our Baked Goods Display edited. If we wanted to edit the website or something like that, come down here and change the type of link it was. We could do that. We could reset. Yes, let's reset. Go ahead and close that. You do note here that when this row is selected, our icon is no longer visible. So a little bit of extra work is needed here to make sure that doesn't happen. This was avoided up here by just disabling the class used on hover and select in the list. But that's it for what we need to do here to edit. If we come back to tours and we look at one such as this one, and this one has a stop here, and we go to the stop details here, there's nothing here. So this is a good example of something that could be deleted. So we could just delete this record and go back to stops, and now it's gone. But it's not gone. Remember, we set up soft delete. And in fact, if we come over here and we look at this other tour builder, which isn't set up to have soft delete at all, and we take a look at that same tour, notice the stop is still there. So we take a look at this test tour here. It still has that stop one, but it's been deleted, air quotes. So while it appears to be gone here, we haven't lost that data. So if we wanted to get it back, we could, if you accidentally deleted an image or something. It might be a good idea to prompt the user, are you sure, on some of these deletes, if it doesn't prompt them already. So that is something to think about. So let's go back in here to test tour 1. Come over to stops. We'll rename this to a walk about the neighborhood. Alright. Save it. And then here, we'll leave all this stuff the same, but we will go in and we'll fix up these two stops. So if we compare the locations of these two, we will notice they aren't quite aligned. And maybe that's okay. In reality, the green one being the address, that is the building that this cafe is in, but this is actually closer. So we're going to leave it. When this is presented to the end user in the mobile app, we will only use the latitude, longitude value. And if it's not there, the stop isn't going to be included. So here we have a local coffee shop. That sounds great. These images look great. Let's go back and check out little free library here. Again, if we compare the locations, this is the address. This is where it's actually located, and this is latitude, longitude value that got captured. So we do want to update this one. So we'll do that. We'll geocode our address. And now that it's updated, we'll save it. We can't review the audio, unfortunately, here because we're in live preview. But if we could play that back and listen to it. We'll keep this selection of free books. That sounds great. Go back to our stops. We'll keep the house there. And you know what? Let's publish it. Let's publish this tour. Let's make it publicly available. So now if we come back to tours, it'll say publish true. This will be available for the user in the mobile app. We will only use tours that have been published. Anything that has an F here will not be available. Now there's one more thing I wanted to show, and that was how do you display all these stops as points on a map? And just very quickly, the list control has something called a map view for the layout. So if we come over to stops, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to convert stops into having multiple layouts. So open this up. If we come over to list properties, we'll come down here to the list layout settings and turn on multiple layouts right here. It's right above the layout properties. So if we turn that on, what we get is this multiple layouts tab. And this is where we can go now to define what layouts are available. So we come to multiple layouts. Right now it just has one default. This is the one we started with. But we can add a new one now. We'll add one called map. And it's a map. The layout itself is defined here. If you were to go to the list layout tab and try to define the map there won't be any settings. There's never been any settings available for defining the map layout. It's always defined within the layout properties. And whether that's here or on the list properties, it's the same in both places. So let's go in here and set it up. So we have our map layout settings. We have latitude, longitude, or address. And this needs to return the latitude and longitude or the address. So we have a location. However, it's encoded as a string and not two separate fields. So we're going to have to do some magic with that to separate it. So first things we want to do, we want to say var location equals poi location. If location, I think its length is 0, as in, or if location is equal to that. If it doesn't have a location defined, we don't want to use this. And if that's the case, location actually needs to be poi address, which is up here for convenience. All right. So that needs to be address. We're going to return location. So if it's not this, if it does exist, we need to convert it to an array. And the array is in latitude, longitude, which is great. That's the way the values are written in our control, lat, comma, long. So location simply needs to become this. Location dot split on the comma. So that will convert location from a string to an array that contains the latitude and the longitude. And I should spell location right. Let's go here. There we go. So that should be all we need to do. We're going to test this real quick. We'll leave the marker icon alone. We will set the marker title to the same thing. Let's go back up here. Actually, no. We're going to set the marker title to the stop name. So we're just going to return POI name. Now, if your stop doesn't have a name, you need to add it. In fact, let's make sure that let's do this. Let's do stop number and then what did we call it? It's going to be down at the end of this stop order. Stop number, stop order. If it doesn't have one, you'll need to add it. Space and then point of interest name. Oh, and I'm realizing I've already done this. I've made a mistake. I need to do data.poi name. And we need to do the same thing up here for our location and our address. So we'll clean that up real quick. Okay. And so this will give the marker a title. When you hover over it or click on it, it'll show that title. And this defines where it's going to be plotted. Everything else is fine. We can accept all the other defaults here. We'll just click OK. This is not the default layout, so we're going to have to add a way to view it. And we're going to do that simply by adding, oops, we'll click OK again here. And let's open that up real quick just to make sure that everything was saved. Looks like it was not. Let's turn that back on. Okay. And just go over and check our multiple layouts real quick. It didn't save it. So I'm going to add that back in real quick and then we'll go take a look at adding in the header. So the next thing we need to do is just simply add a way to toggle between the view of a list and a map. And we're going to do that by adding a panel header to this panel card. We'll actually put a control bar in this time. We'll go in the control bar and we'll add 2 buttons. Here we go. So here we're going to add a control bar item. We're going to add a button list. And in the button list settings, we're going to have 2 options. We're going to add a button that renders the list as a column list for the location stops, and one that shows the map. So this first one, we'll just go in here and we'll find something that looks like a bullet list or a table. In fact, let's do a table. Well, not that kind of table. There we go. So we could do a grid. You know, let's stick with list. We'll pick that one. So this one will represent, like, display all the entries as a list of entries. Okay. And the value of this is going to be default, so the default layout. Display stop list. Then we'll add another button, and this one will look like a map. We'll go with that one, because we've used it before to indicate a map. And this one we're going to call it map, and then say display stops map. Okay. So one more thing we need to do is we need to define a variable name where all of this info is going to be stored, the selected button value. So we'll call it list layout. And we'll click OK. So what this basically means is this up here says HTML value default value map. So when one of these buttons is selected, it will set a value in this variable called list layout. And that list layout variable will have 2 properties. One will be value, which is the value. And the other one is the settings, the data, so this stuff here. So what we could do was when something's selected and we don't want to allow a null selection, we want one of them always selected, ideally the first option, which I think if we go in here, I think this one will be selected by default, but we won't know until we, oh no, here it is, initial selections, default. All right, don't allow no, don't allow multiple. So next what we have to do is make an action, which I already started here, called list set layout. This action will be called by the click event, so whenever something is clicked, it will read it. And so here in this action here, we can read the value of what was selected out of what we defined in that item. So if we go back to the item, look in here, we defined a variable called list layout, and this is going to be available on the the data variable, the control baller's data object, which is available to us in the action. So we want to get list layout out of that, and we want to read its value. So we're going to do this. Click OK. Come back to actions here. We're going to look at data. Data.listLayout. Apologies for the pause. So we're going to do data.listLayout.value. So we're going to say, is it var selected layout equals data.listLayout.value. If selected layout isn't anything, for some reason if it's not set, then we're going to set it to default. And I think we used capitalization, so I'm going to wrap it in bracket real quick, and we're going to go double check on our items here what those values were. So it's capital default, capital map. Okay, that's important to know. So we're going to say if selected layout equal to map, and really we could probably just get rid of this and just test for map. If it's map, we would like to set the layout for list stops to map. So we're going to do that with a dialog object method. I believe it's a dialog object method. It might be a list method. Oh, what is a list method? So we'll do this one. We'll say insert. So we need to get list object. So you remember that var list obj dialog object get control stops. And we should always check that it exists before we use it. If it exists, we're going to set the layout to map. So obj layout name. And we will need to go double check in fact, let's really simplify this. Let's move this way up here so we only do this if the list exists. If. And we can indent that. Is this indent? No, we don't have indent. All right. Okay. So if it's not the map, we want default, which is our column or layout. So if we're going to select current layout to map if we selected map, otherwise we will use default. from this value. So let's try it out. Well, we can't try it out just yet. We also need to add the buttons to the control bar layout. So let's add a new layout. We'll add a line, and we'll just add right here. We'll just put in our button list. This is our list of layout options. And I think we'll click OK and check it out, see how this works. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at our walkabout the neighborhood that we fixed up earlier. It has 4 stops. And here are our 2 items. By default, you'll see that this show list of stops is selected. And this other one, which is white because it's not selected, this will display our map, and there are our stops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this layout is awfully wide, so it might make sense to swap this so this list is actually here, which means there's some implications for how this gets shrunk down. But this is essentially gives us the ability to go through and review all of those stops. And so if we go back here to one of our bigger tours, like the Boston Freedom Trail here, we go back to a list here. Notice the POI location on all of these is missing. So that might actually be a terrible one. Oops, I clicked the design tab. Hold on. Let's get back into that. Okay, so we're back here. If we go and look at Hike Tour, for example here, which this one isn't ready to be seen by the world. This has got 40 some odd stops in it. We did not adjust the width yet, so that's why that looks like that. But if we come in here and we give it a minute, it should plot all those locations over here. And we'll need to do something to get it to recenter. I do know for a fact that there is a stop in here that causes the map to be large. I think it's missing its location data, so it needs to be removed. But if we look here, you know, you can see all the stops along this route on this hiking trail, up to 9, 4, and you see some of them are a bit off. Like 3 is way up there. I suspect it may not want to be way up there. It might want to be over here somewhere. So, and I'd mentioned about how geolocation capture can get really way off. You'll see these stops over here way out there. You might want to remove those because they're not on the route, and it's impossible to know, at least in the context of this tour, where that was supposed to be, because all we got were longitude locations, which is exactly what I asked for when this person made this route for me. So I'm very grateful for the work they did. But yeah, this gives you an idea of where those locations are. So that's basically the core functionality and gist. There are a bunch of little nice things that we could do here. We could automatically go to the stops tab when you select a tour, and automatically go to the stop details when you select one of the stops on the list. We're not going to add that in. That's something we've covered before in a lot of depth in past webinars and demos. So I'll leave that to you to add yourself. This is already going much longer than I had originally planned. But this is our interface for working with our stops, getting them into a state so that we could then use them in a mobile app, which we're going to look at in the next lesson, the next chapter. So we're going to go back, we're going to talk about what we're going to plan to do for that, and then take a look at a very basic mobile app to review stops and get some routing information to at least the starting location so that you can go on the walk yourself.